Ladies and gentlemen, as the President of the fifth session of the Conference of the States Parties to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, held in Panama City in November 2013, it is my pleasure to call this first meeting of the sixth session of the conference to order. Before proceeding to the election of the new president, allow me to thank you for the great honor that you have bestowed on my country and myself personally by giving me the opportunity to serve the conference as the president of its fifth session. In fulfilling my task, I was supported by a very able and cooperative bureau, the vice presidents, Mr. Paulus Noah from Namibia, Mr. Ion Galea from Romania, and Mr. Ignacio Bailina Ruiz from Spain, and the rapporteur, Mr. Hu Bin from China. I was further supported by an efficient and dynamic secretariat that has always been responsive to new challenges. Your Excellencies, to emphasize the important progress that Panama attaches to the progress that has been made since the Conference of State Parties held in Panama in 2013. First of all, allow me to recall that the Convention is now approaching universal ratification, now that 177 States Parties are connected to this through this international instrument and the universal principles that it enshrines, given that there are 121 countries that have now completed their respective reviews and many other countries that are coming close to the conclusion of this. It is with pride that Panama can confirm that it has implemented or is close to implementing up to 80% of the recommendations that have been issued in this regard. The follow-up to these recommendations provides a direct contribution to addressing the 40 recommendations made by the FATF. We can affirm that alliance with the Convention has a direct impact on the economic development within our countries. In this regard, we would like to encourage States Parties to consider options or methodologies that can be used in order to ensure that all states under review provide the necessary follow-up for the recommendations that they have received in order to uphold the principles enshrined within the Convention. The efforts made by countries under review will not bear fruit unless the reviewing countries and the Secretariat of the Convention can ensure follow-up to the recommendations. I would also like to highlight the significant resolutions that have been adopted by the previous conference regarding police cooperation, prevention, asset recovery, as well as the contribution that youth and children can make to the prevention of corruption and the contribution of the private sector, which have received follow-up in the working groups and in the expert groups established by the conference, and which I hope have served to inspire public policies and those of the private sector in many states. For Panama, it is a true achievement, the fact that this series of informal consultations has led the States Parties to decide for the first time that the agenda of this session of the conference will include an item regarding the implementation of Article 63C of paragraph 4 of the Convention, which provides also for a debate on cooperation with international and regional organizations and mechanisms, as well as with non-governmental organizations. It is the official position of the government of Panama to enable non-governmental organizations to participate as observers with consultative status, as is the case for many other international conventions. And we would like to encourage other states to support this provision. Let us not forget the crucial role that these organizations play in the fight against corruption. Combating corruption is the responsibility of all, and that is why we must all participate in the eradication of corruption. And thus, the conference is well prepared in order to sketch future steps to be adopted as regards the important topics that have been proposed. First of all, the future of the implementation review mechanism, the conclusion of the first review cycle, the comprehensive assessment list for the second review cycle, establishing procedures and deadlines for the second review cycle, funding the second review cycle, and the institutional arrangements for the second cycle, including the architecture of the subsidiary organs of the conference. Moreover, there is a series of draft resolutions that have been submitted addressing issues such as cooperation between the state and enterprises in combating and preventing corruption, the use of civil and administrative proceedings against corruption, asset recovery, prevention, promoting the provision of public services through the use of advanced technology. And once again, I urge you to ensure that your future public policies are inspired by the contents of these resolutions, which simply serve to guide us in our compliance with the Convention. Finally, for the first time, the conference shall have a historic opportunity to engage in detailed discussion regarding cooperation between international organizations and mechanisms, as well as with relevant regional organizations and non-governmental organizations. Once again, I would like to thank the conference for the honor of serving as its president for the past 2 years, and allow me to wish all delegations here fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much.
La conferencia.
The conference should now proceed to elect its bureau for the session. In accordance with Rule 22 of the Rules of Procedure, at the opening of each session, a president, 3 vice presidents, and a rapporteur shall be elected from among the representatives of the state's parties present at the session. In accordance with the same rule, the president, the vice presidents, and the rapporteur shall serve as the officers of the session. In electing the officers of the session, each of the 5 regional groups shall be represented by 1 officer. The offices of the president and rapporteur of the conference shall be subject to rotation among the 5 regional groups. However, in accordance with standard practice established for conferences that are held away from United Nations headquarters, at the invitation of a government, the president is normally a representative of the host government. The conference followed that practice at its 1st to 5th sessions. And thus, I had the honor to be elected as president in my capacity as the representative of Panama, as a member of the group of Latin American and Caribbean states, at the last session of the conference. I understand that the conference wishes to once again follow this practice for conferences held away from the United Nations headquarters. In nominating the representative of the Russian Federation as president of the conference, I understand that this arrangement is understood not to constitute a precedent for future sessions of the conference. I am pleased to announce that His Excellency, Mr. Alexander Konovalov, Minister of Justice of the Russian Federation, has been nominated to occupy the position of President of this conference. I am very pleased to see this task passed on to His Excellency, Mr. Konovalov, who has considerable experience in the matters at stake and on the international scene. May I assume that you wish to elect by acclamation His Excellency Mr. Konovalov from our host country as President of the conference at its 6th session.